what's up? It's PDX Guitar Freak, and in this video I'm going to show you the Fender American Professional Telecaster, which, as the name states, is part of Fender's American Professional series of guitars. The Professional series replaced the long-running, after almost 30 years, Fender American Standard series. And I'll talk a little bit later in the video about what some of the changes have been. Now, some of you might be surprised, well, you might not be surprised based on the playing at the beginning, but you might be surprised to find out that I'm interested in a Telecaster because of the type of music I typically do in my videos, right? It's a lot of 80s and sometimes 70s inspired hard rock. But the fact of the matter is there's more to me than just interest in that style of music, although it's my preferred. And I've wanted a Telecaster for many, many years. I mean, it is such an iconic instrument, and I know many of you know that it was the first mass-produced and commercially successful solid-body guitar, beating out the Les Paul and the Strat. Strat was supposed to replace the Tele, but obviously the Tele endured despite that. And you know, one thing that I found about the Telecaster community, and I'm talking about the guys that are die-hard Tele fans, the ones that live and breathe Teles, is that they are so passionate. They might even be the most passionate group of players when it comes to their instrument of choice. And amongst that group, you have a wide spectrum of players with different interests in Teles or T-style guitars. On one end of the spectrum, you have the die-hard vintage guys that demand vintage specs. And for them, the Tele was perfect in the 1950s and never needed to change. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have those T-style guitar fans that appreciate modern appointments and updates to their Telecasters. In my opinion, this guitar is a great compromise. It retains some of those classic aesthetics and the looks with some modern updates. So for me, it's the perfect blend between the two. Now, to help illustrate that, let me talk about the other guitars that I considered. Now, going into this decision, I knew I wanted a Tele, but I wasn't sure if I wanted, you know, a vintagey one or a more modern one. And so I explored three. One was the American Professional, of course, and then I also looked at the American Original 50s, and I looked at the American Elite. Now, all three of these are relatively newer models. The Elite debuted in 2016, the Professional in 17, and the Original 50s in 18. The price, of course, is a little bit different. I'll put those up on the screen. Those are street prices, so you can see how much more you pay for each one. And now the Original 50s, I really liked the vibe aesthetically. I loved the tone, very pure, vintagey. But what ended up ruling against it was the feel of the neck. It's got the classic U-shaped neck, which I played for 10 minutes and I just couldn't get comfortable with it. And I think I can attribute that to two things. One, my hands are a little on the smaller side, at least by Western standards, I suppose. And second, I'm used to very thin, you know, shredder necks, if you will. So it just I couldn't get comfortable with it, and I didn't want to fight it. I think it's a very cool guitar, but it just didn't work for me. Now, the American Elite was kind of the opposite of that from a comfort standpoint. And now I was familiar with some of the specs on the American Elite Telecaster because I own a Fender American Elite Stratocaster. They have a similar neck profile, which is the modern C to D, so it morphs from that modern C up here to a D up here. It also has a compound radius fretboard, so it gets flatter up as you get up here. Also, from a comfort standpoint, you don't have the classic block heel here. It's actually contoured, so you can get up to the upper frets a little bit easier. This doesn't bother me, though. I have guitars in both ways, and you get used to it. But again, very, very comfortable. Now, there's some other things that you pay for with the Elite, such as it has the S1 switching system. And if you're not familiar with that, basically on the volume knob, there's a button. You press down into it to engage the switching system. And what that does is it takes the pickups, when they're in combination, from series to parallel. So it kind of gives it that thicker humbucker almost sound. Now on the Elite Strat, because you have three different, you actually have more tonal options with the S1 switching. It gives you three different options. With the Tele, it just gives you one more. But I didn't need that. It wasn't important to me. On the Elite, you also get locking tuners, which it was very cool. I like that. You have individual saddles. We'll talk about the saddles here on the Professional in a minute. What else do you have? They both have the treble bleed circuit. The Elite has a contoured back. Anyway, there's one other there's one other big difference with the Elite compared to the other Teles, and that it has binding. And I thought that the binding on the Elite versions looked really cool, except for the butterscotch blonde. And that's the finish I had to have, right? This is the classic Tele look. And the binding on that, I just felt like it took away from it. I mean, I understand why it's there. It's supposed to kind of differentiate it from the other models and kind of class it up a bit. But to me, it just takes away from that classic Tele look. And I just couldn't get over it on the butterscotch blonde. So really, when it came down to it, it had features that I didn't need to pay for, and I didn't like the binding. So in the end, I went back and tried the Professional again, and it was the one for me. Again, perfect compromise between super modern and the classic aesthetic or appearance. And I'm so glad I made the choice to buy this one. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the features here on the guitar. All right, let's talk about the body first. So it comes in either alder or ash, depending on the finish that you want. The butterscotch blonde is always going to be ash. And you're going to pay more for the ash models. And what went away, some of the more recent standards had the body contour like you have on a Strat back here, but they got rid of it. Now we're back to the classic slab here with no contours. There's a lot of other changes they made to make it look more like a classic Tele, which I think is really, really cool. Now for the bridge, one change that they made from the standard series to the new Professional is, again, in that attempt to make it look more classic, they went away from the individual 6 saddles back to the classic 3 saddles. Now people might worry that for intonation purposes there'd be some issues there, but they're compensated saddles. In addition, they went from bent steel now to brass saddles, which are supposed to be a little bit more resonant, both when you're playing acoustically and plugged in. In addition, it comes with a mini ashtray cover. They used to have the old school ones that covered up the whole bridge. Remember those? Now it's got a mini one, which you gotta snap on.
1 hour later.
Okay, I got it on. What a bitch. And it's really just purely cosmetic. It doesn't really do anything. It does provide a nice little hand rest if you want, but unlike the old school the Teles, your hand doesn't get cut up down here. So it's really, and I think a lot of people originally assumed that the full cover they used to have was for shielding purposes, but apparently it was just to make it look cool. So again, not easy to get on and off, and it doesn't really do much, but it's there. Now the pickups, these are Tim Shaw designed V-Mod single coils, as they're called, each designed individually for each position. Now I actually thought the original 50s pickups sounded the coolest, the most pure. These have a little more output to them, as do the 4th generation noiseless on the Elite. And one other really cool feature of the guitar is the treble bleed circuit, which is not a new thing, but Fender's putting it in a lot of their mid to high level guitars. And what it does is, as you're turning down your volume knob, typically every guitarist experiences this, you end up losing some of the high end. But what this does is it compensates for that. So as you turn down, you still retain some of the high end, so you can still back off on the volume a little bit, and it's still nice and crisp. So it's really cool feature. Now in terms of the neck, again, this was an important factor in me not choosing one of the guitars, right, the original 50s. So this is a newer Fender shape, and it's called Deep C, as in the letter C, of course. Previously, the American Standard had the modern C shape. and it's really somewhere between a C and a U because it's got deeper shoulders, if you know what that means. And when I originally read about it, I was a little bit nervous, and I thought, I wonder if that's going to be comfortable for me. But I was really surprised at how comfortable it felt. Again, I'm used to very thin, shredder style necks, and I'm not used to having this much wood in my hand. And I know I just set myself up for some jokes there, but I was surprised at how comfortable it was. I was a little bit nervous about that. So then with the frets, previously the standard series had medium jumbo. These are narrow tall, so they're actually narrower than the medium jumbos, but they're taller. They're as tall as a jumbo fret, standard jumbo fret. But again, very, very comfortable. I wasn't sure what to expect out of those, but again, I love the feel of this neck. It's fast, it's comfortable for me, no complaints at all. Now, I'm not sure what else is really worth mentioning about the guitar in terms of the specs. I mean, it's got instead of synthetic now, it's got an actual bone nut, so they've changed that, which is nice. Other than that, it looks and feels just like a Tele, which is what I was looking for. Also, they've upgraded the case from the standard series. Now you get the Elite case, so the same case you get with the Elite models, which is a really sturdy, really nice case. Okay, I'm going to play a little bit for you now so you can hear the different pickup configurations, and also so you can hear the tone bleed circuit in work. Now I'm using my Line 6 Helix processor, so I'm going right from the Tele into the Helix, into my PC with no additional editing or EQing. And I'm relatively new to the Helix. I've had it for about a month, so these patches are a work in progress. So hopefully they sound okay. All right, let's go ahead and jump on into that. Now I'm going to use a relatively high gain patch for lead, and you'll see me at certain points take the volume knob down to about 30%, and again I'm doing that so you can hear how the treble bleed circuit works in terms of retaining the high-end frequencies when you roll the volume down. Alright, that was my video on the Fender American Professional Telecaster. If you have questions, let me know and I'll answer them as time allows. And until next time, rock on.